we discussed, there's an argument after Gamaliel enacted that you should not cancel the shliach only in his presence, or tell the woman that the get is not valid before she receives the get. What? So he says the get is intact. So the Gemara asked, according to Shimon Gamliel, how could the get be intact? That it's not canceled. Actually, the husband canceled the shlichus. The Gemara says, "Kol dem kadosh rabbanim mekadosh." They annul the marriage. That's what the Gemara answered. The Gemara of Basra speaks about a case where a person forces a woman to marriage. He hangs her on a tree, and says, "I want to marry you." She says, "Manager," he says, "Okay, if that's the case, you're not coming down." So that's tlui v'kodesh. He hung her up, and he marries her, and she only consented to marry him because otherwise she'd have to stay up on the tree. So Mara says, although on a Torah level it should be valid, because he gave her the ring and she consented, even though the consent was only a result of being put in this position. But the Mara says, because who also shloka, he acted inappropriately. That's not the way you marry a woman. Therefore, also shloka. So they treat him as he treated the woman. As you treated the woman in an unacceptable way, we treat you in this way, in a similar way. And therefore we annul the marriage. Over there, the Gemara doesn't use the term kol mekadosh rabbanim mekadosh. That a person, when he marries, it's all based on the contingent on the will of the chacham, whether they want the marriage to be a marriage or not. It just says they annul the marriage. So the question is the Gemara in Bava Basra arguing with the Gemara here in Gitin, because the Gemara here uses the term kol mekadosh rabbanim mekadosh. Whoever marries, it's based on, and Rashi says, because you say Kedas Moshe Yisrael. It's a conditional marriage. If they condone it, yes. If they don't condone it, I don't want it. So therefore, it's easy to annul it. They say, we don't want it, so if that's the case, he never intended to marry her. But in that case over there, the Gemara doesn't mention the words, Kol HaMekadosh Daitcher Rabbanan, that the person initially, when he marries, it's contingent on whether Chazal condone it or not.
How does the marriage take place in the first place? Because they didn't want something else. I understand that they can annul it, but how does it actually...
Because she said, I consent. I agree to marry you.
Yes, but there was a condition that the whole thing be in conformance with the Chazal.
Wait.
So how
What about he didn't say that? What happens if he didn't say that? He didn't say, I'm marrying you contingent on whether Chazal want it or not.
Is that a Jewish marriage?
It's valid. On the Torah level, it's valid. You don't have to say that. A man gives a ring and just says, Harei Mukadeshesli, B'tabazu. He doesn't say more than that. And she takes silent, she accepts the ring. She's married on a Torah level. And on a rabbinical level. On both, she's married.
She is.
And the Chazal there do not annul the marriage. It's being that it's an appropriate woman, and somehow he forgot to say Kedas Moshe, so he did not say that.
So when we say that every Jewish marriage must conform to the will of the Chazal, what does that mean if you allow a marriage like this to take place?
Which marriage? The marriage in Bava Basra? So the Gemara says, regardless whether he says it or not, they annul it. So if it's money, hefker bez nefker.
How did it take place?
What do you mean, how did it take place? The man took a ring, took two witnesses. He had no rabbi, and that's the way he married the woman. Finished. You don't need a rabbi to marry to bring about a marriage. No, he gave her a ring. In presence to witness, she says, I consent. Finished. That's the end of the story.
We say that the concept of marriage is under the auspices.
It's not under auspices. It's not under auspices. Torah says, you just follow the instruction, she's married. What does marriage mean? Give a woman something of value in the presence of witnesses, and intent to marry, and she agrees to, and she says yes, or remains silent, which is the equivalent of consenting to the marriage. She's married.
So then how do the Chazal have the right to undo that? Now, back to the same question. If it's not in conformance with the Chazal, if you say...
Of course, they're empowered if they want.
They're empowered. If they were not even party to that transaction.
They don't have to be party to the transaction. That's the concept of hefker bez nefker. They could cause something and cause something to be ownerless, whether you like it or not. They were empowered by the Torah to do that. If something's not appropriate, they're empowered. They could put a person. We had them on Shabbos. A man had riding a horse on Shabbos is rabbinical, because we say chai no seis atzmo. So a person went and he rode a horse in a public area, and he defied the Chazal. They put him to death. But he didn't violate a Torah law. They're empowered that anything which is there to protect the Torah, because once you have that kind of breach, it's the beginning and the end.
Basically, this power has nothing to do with marriage. It's just a separate power that
Yeah, but there. But I'm saying, in this particular case, yeah, right. And it's hefker as an hefker. We said many times. If you marry a woman in the 6th hour, Erev Pesach, 6th hour rabbinically, you're not permitted to benefit from chametz. On a Torah level, you're permitted. And he said he marries with a certain type of chametz in the 6th hour. She's not married. Why is she not married? So Rashi said hefker as an hefker. Because Hazal said in the 6th hour, as much as on a Torah level you own it, you no longer own it. Because they disown it, and it assumes the status of the equivalent of Isurei Hano, although it's not Isurei Hano. Rabbinically, you're not permitted to benefit from it.
Let's just go back. In this case with the tree and the man which accepts the ring, okay. I understand that the Chazal can take the ring and deem it hefker.
Correct.
So that, according to that, the marriage never took place.
Correct.
Because he never gave her anything.
Correct.
That, to me, is not called a nulling.
I'm not using the word annul.
Okay.
Meaning,
annulling
there it never took place.
It never took place.
Right, correct. I'm only using that.
So I get that. They've got the power to do this. But I'm now talking about annulling.
Only marriage.
If the marriage never took place in conformance, let's suppose that this man tied the woman up on the bed and she was about to strangle her. And he said, I'm now going to marry you with beer. Okay? No money involved.
And she agrees.
And she agrees.
Good. That the Gemara speaks about that case too.
All right. So this is a semi-ring. You know,
And she agrees. She agrees.
She agrees.
Right.
Okay. Such a thing could never have been in conformance with the will of the Chazal.
But factually, he says it's irrelevant what Chazal say.
How do they know that?
So good. The Gemara asked that question. The Gemara says, Kodesh Bekasper, we say hefker bez and hefker. But if he married through cohabitation, how did they annul that one? How did they say that it's nothing? The Gemara answers, they're empowered to do that. How? Okay, let's talk out. That's what Tosas talks about over there. And over there, the Gemara doesn't mention, because it was contingent whether they condone or don't condone it. So that we discussed. The Gemara says in Yevomis that Yesh Koch Chacham Lakot Dov Min HaTorah, the Chacham were empowered to uproot something of the Torah, V'shev al Taseh. If one does not fulfill it passively, but to proactively permit something that's not permitted, that they don't do. If you read the Gemara literally, it means they're not empowered to do that. So here, what do they have to do? They have to deem the act as a non-Kedushin act. Even though on a Torah level, she's married. They say she's not married. How could she not be married? The act was done. The marriage took place. So Tosas says in a number of places that the Gemara says that they don't, doesn't mean they can't. They choose not to. But if it comes to a situation where they must to preserve Torah, they'll uproot it, even though it's proactively uprooting it.
So what exactly are they doing there?
They say the act of cohabitation, we don't deem it as an act of marriage, and it's nothing. It's considered a promiscuous act. And the Torah recognizes that they have, if the Torah would say that. If the Torah would say a rape, regardless if she would say, I consent, means nothing. The Torah empowered Chazal to say the same thing. If they feel that Judaism is at stake, if people behave this way, they're empowered to do the same thing, to deem the act as a meaningless act.
So theoretically, a man could put on tefillin, the kavanah, and the Chazal could say you've done nothing.
Let's talk. Maybe say Kon Kriyashma Barvin. So it says you're not supposed to say Kriyashma after Chatzos, at night. If you intentionally delay it till after midnight, it says Lo Yotzi de Chovaso. That's the Mishnah. Those are the words of the Mishnah. So there's an argument among the Rishonim. What does it mean Lo Yotzi de Chovaso? You did not fulfill your obligation. Doesn't mean Mitzvah Min HaMuvchar. Doesn't mean you did not fulfill it properly, but factually you did. Or it means no, you didn't fulfill it. Rabbeinu Yonah says in Brochos Lo Yotzi de Chovaso, they actually annul the mitzvah. You did not fulfill the mitzvah of Kriyashma. But you said Kriyashma, and you intended for the mitzvah. Doesn't mean anything. And the same we had the same Gemara in Sukkah. If a person goes and to Machlois B'Sham B'Yisil, if you sit in the Sukkah and you put your table is in the house. Here, The sukkah is sufficient size. And you're sitting in the sukkah, and your food is on the table, but the table's in the house, and you're taking food off the table, and you're eating the food in the sukkah. Are you yotzei? So he said, why not? You're in the sukkah. So Beis Shammai says, because Shemi Moshe Shulchano. Because it's inevitable, the person, if this is the way he conducts himself, he's going to end up eating in the house. So the Chazal said, you're not appropriately fulfilling the mitzvah. So it says, they came to visit Yosei Chorani, and that's what he was doing. So he said, Lo yotzes yidei sukkah mi yomoch. If this is the way you conduct yourself, you never fulfill the mitzvah of sukkah. It's the same argument. It's machlokas rishonim. Tosa says it means you would never fulfill the mitzvah. The Ran in sukkah says no, mitzvah min hamuvchar. You did not fill it properly, appropriately, but you fulfilled it. The Tosa says no, you would not yotza whatsoever.
So according to Tosfos,
And that's Tosa's consistent. Tosa's consistent. What he says, there are times where they're empowered to annul the mitzvah that the mitzvah has no value.
demon act as if it didn't happen.
Exactly. Whether it's Kriya Shema, whether it's Sukkah, whatever it may be. It's a question. Reb Kiveger asked the question. Reb Kiveger asked the question. Reb Kiveger asks a question. It says, we don't blow shofar, which Rosh Hashanah falls out on Shabbos. Because Shemi Yavri and Dal, that's which is Rabbi. Reb Kiveger asks, first there's a question. Mitzvah b'avera, right? You're not Yotzei. Tomorrow in Sukkah, Mitzvah b'avera. You steal a lulav, and you want to be Yotzei with it on the second day of Sukkah, so you don't have to own the lulav. So you're being Yotzei with a stolen lulav. So it's an avera. Everybody agrees you're not Yotzei. But there, because you're dealing with a stolen item, which is a Torah violation. What about if it only be rabbinical? It's only rabbinical. Mitzvah b'avera. Are you Yotzei or not? No. You blew a shofar. You're not supposed to blow a shofar on Shabbat. Rosh Hashanah falls out on Shabbos.
What did you buy? What did you buy?
Rabbinically said, because since you may transport the shofar, therefore we don't want you to blow shofar on Shabbos. Rosh Hashanah falls on Shabbos. The muktzah is only a consequence of that. But you're not. They said we don't want you to blow shofar. He says I will blow shofar. I feel it's not a problem. But he did it. He violated a rabbinic law, right? So there's a question with mitzvah b'avera. Does that deem it as nothing, even on the Torah level? Well, not. So what is it all about? So Kivega has the question over there. So again, if they're empowered to deem something meaningless, having no value, okay, so it's nothing. But if all they could do is only prevent you from doing something, and a person is not considered culpable for not doing the mitzvah, you're supposed to blow the shofar. Chazal said don't blow the shofar. A person can be held liable for not blowing shofar because the Torah says you must abide by what the Chazal tell you. Since you're in onus. I had no choice. The Torah says you must listen to them. But here, what about if you didn't listen to them? And you did something contrary to their will, but on Torah level, it should have value. Oh, you Yotzei. So that has to do that they have the power to annul something, although on the Torah level, it has value.
So come back now to this man. It's the woman in the tree. According to Tosfos, why did the marriage even take place in the first place?
Exactly. It didn't.
It didn't take place.
Never took place.
It never took place. Okay, so then he's consistent.
In
That
every-
marriage
in
never
every
took
case,
place. So
that
there's no
marriage never takes place?
If he forced her, never took place.
So the halacha by coercion is the same by
Only-
marriage,
By monetary, not.
divorce?
No. The Torah says divorce could be against her will.
No, not against his will.
No, unless Bezdin. No, wait. Bezdin could force a get. It's called get Musa. Of course, that the Rambam explains. Because the Torah says you must abide by the dictate of the court, of the rabbinic court. The court says you have to divorce. That's what you're supposed to do. They're not doing anything inappropriate. He, by not agreeing, he's doing something inappropriate.
You said earlier that if he hangs her on the tree and she says I accept.
Because that's inappropriate.
Okay, why? It would be the same thing by a get.
No, wait.
Hang a man from the tree.
Wait a second.
And you say,
Wait a second. Let me tell you the difference. The woman is not obligated to marry this man. She has no obligation to marry him. Where do you have a right to put a woman in a position where she has no choice but to say yes? That's inappropriate. But if Bezdin says you must divorce her, and he says, I'm not listening, I'm not going to abide by your ruling, this is unacceptable. So they could flog him, or they could bring about a level of pain where he has no choice but to say, I consent. Because that's what he's supposed to consent.
Come back now. So Tosfos would say that this man who hangs the woman in the tree, the marriage, it was a promiscuous act from the beginning.
Correct.
No marriage even took place.
Correct.
So we don't have to annul anything.
The word annul, it was never a marriage.
It was never a marriage.
Correct. Here it's only because something had to take place later to annul it, that's why it's retroactive.
But according to the other Chazal who argue with Tosfos, maybe the marriage did take effect and they do have to annul it.
But then it's a problem. Because the Gemara says explicitly, even he's Makarish B'Biyah, he brings the marriage through cohabitation, they deem it nothing, worthless.
But it was consensual.
But she only consented because she had no choice.
No, but say the case she does have a choice.
So of course it's a marriage. Why shouldn't it be a marriage?
Okay, so it's a marriage.
Yeah. So you have to say, everybody agrees that Chazal are always empowered to deem something worthless, meaningless. The question is, do they ever act on it? Rabbeinu Yonah says, even for Kriya Shema, if you say it after midnight, they do act on that power that they have. All the other Rishonim say no. It's not mitzvah minimum for it. They don't act. It's not important enough that they can act on it. Where it's a case where a woman is the equivalent of rape, and that should be marriage, that they say, under no circumstance, that we will not tolerate. So they're not arguing in concept. It's just the application of that ability. When do they apply? When don't they apply it? I mean, we had Tosas in Avodah Zorah. The Gemara says that when a king would die, the Mishnah says in Sanhedrin that a king's personal effects are not permitted to anybody, even to another king. So what would they do with his horse? They would cut off its hooves, that no one else, even the new king, is not able to ride the horse. Tosas says, "Tsar Balechayim." How could you? You're causing undue pain to the animal. And Tsar Balechayim is Nishna Horaisa, Torah violation. So this is what Tosas is this principle. That although it says Ein Koch B'Yachom Lakdov Merator B'Kum V'Asei, that they're not empowered, it doesn't mean they're not empowered. They don't. Mm-hmm. But if they feel, for whatever reason, they should, then they do act on that power. Just tell me what they did, because it had to be obvious. Because if they killed the horse, the horse died. Here, the king's horse is alive. They did something obvious that no one else should be able to ride it. That's the reason. Mar brings psukim. Yeah. Yes. Sheval Taz is a whole different concept.
Right, so but does it have the same, in other words, if someone blows that shofar Shabbat, he's not...
See, that's a question. That's a question. Right? See, once you say hefker as an hefker, there's nothing to talk about.
Right.
Marriage means you have to give something that you own.
Right.
You didn't give her anything you own.
Right.
But Sheval Taseh, they said, you're not obligated. We're binding you. Let's say he said, I'm not going to be bound. I'm not going to be shackled by Chazal.
Right.
So if they didn't uproot the mitzvah, so then you fulfill the mitzvah.
Yeah.
Right? So that's a question. So the question is, did they uproot it? Didn't they uproot it? But they have if they choose to uproot, they can. The question is only, did they?
So in the case of Git, where a man is really being problematic, instead of, he's defying the will of the Lord, instead of flogging, why can't they simply say, we redeem what you gave her owners?
Why?
Yeah, why
Because
can't
they're
going to flog him. It's over.
Because what happens there, what's the difference between divorce and annulment? Divorce, the Gemara says, megas gaius. The marriage exists till this point, it's terminated. The children were born within the context of marriage. Here it comes up retroactively. The children, even though they're kosher children, there's a blemish on them. No, she'll get the ksubah. She'll get the ksubah even if they annul it. In that, because in practice, we're treating her like she's a divorced woman.
The We don't want to affect the children.
We don't affect the children.
We'd
Correct.
rather have it as a gift.
Correct. Correct.
But they
What
theoretically
about
could
Can-
do that.
what about the case of Orlando children?
We don't make differentiations. You don't make differentiation because it's the same case. It's the exact same case. There's one approach. Either it's annulment or we force the get.
Why can't they just create? Yeah, if the
Esther doesn't act. If this was all legislated by Chazal, in this situation you do, other situation you don't. You can't create your own standard when yes and when not.
But they could do that.
Definitely, no question. They could. Yes, 100%. They don't. He leaves it unresolved because everybody agrees they can. The question is, did they? See, then you have to bring a proof specifically as Kriya Shema. There's a machlokes by Kriya Shema. There's a machlokes by Sukkah. Do you see? Each case is an individual case, is individualized. So Shofar would also be an individualized situation.
Why couldn't Chazal just,
No, because in practice,
But theoretically, she could marry a Kohen.
sure, on Torah level, definitely. I mean, you have a case, if you have a Kedushay Tos, a woman gets married, and the whole thing was under false pretenses. And it's ruled she does not need a get. She could have been married for 60 years. She was never married. She is permitted to the Kohen.
but technically, why couldn't Chazal just, if the husband is not willing to give a get, why can't they just create the get and avoid the husband's agreement to the get? Chazal has that power.
Why should they? Why should they?
Why should they go ahead? It's much easier to go create a get than to go find the husband, flog him, beat him, and
That we just said. That's what we just said. Because then, what are the kids? Then the kids are born out of wedlock.
Chazal creates the get.
Oh, Chazal create a get. But so what is the get? That means they're uprooting the marriage. What do they have to uproot? Uprooting the marriage is when you have no choice. They have a choice because this is called consensual. If he says I agree, that's a consensual get. You understand?
It has to be consensual.
Get has to be consensual. There is, under certain circumstances, they could uproot it. But if they uproot, that means they're saying a married woman's permitted to remarry. That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
The other way, they're not saying married. She's divorced because the man consented. He only consented under duress. Doesn't make a difference, but he consented. Doesn't make a difference. What?
They're saying that it's not really the rest.
It is the rest.
He really wants to do
It is the rest. It's under duress. He only said I can under duress, but it doesn't make a difference because that's what he really wants to do.
Right.
The Gemara in Basha says, person is a miser. He would prefer to die of hunger rather than spend money. But it reaches a point he can't tolerate the pain, and he's agreeable to pay for the bread. So you know something? The baker forced him to relinquish his money because he really wouldn't want to give anything. But he has no choice because he wants to live. Therefore, he gave the money to pay for the bread. So in every situation, there's a degree of coercion because the circumstance forces the person to give up his money. That's where the Gemara starts. Therefore, by a piece of property, if a person is forced to relinquish his property where you pay market value for the property, it's considered a valid transaction for that reason. There's always coercion, even though it's not so simple, because there's a difference. The Gemara says that. Nobody argues that. But that's monetary. Only if it's within only marriage, that's where they will not tolerate it.
But I mean, even then, it's not in conformance with the way Chazal
Correct.
business to be
Right.
conducted.
Correct.
But they wouldn't uproot that.
Correct. As long as the man paid market value for whatever that commodity or transaction was,
If the Chazal want to void that transaction,
they can very easily.
how do they void it? What is the mechanism?
They say the money that was given was never was. You need consideration. No consideration was ever given.
So what was given?
Nothing.
It's hefty.
If I would take somebody else's money and pay for a piece of property, is it valid?
No, but the man did take his own money. I mean, if they say
It's not his money. They deemed the money is no longer his.
Oh, so he didn't. It was hefker.
Hefker bez nefker.
That's what it is.
That's what hefker bez nefker.
That's what they.
Correct. It's ownerless. Person comes to your house says, "I'd like to buy your house." He says, "Not for sale." So you take a bag of money and say, and you have a gun, say, look, you have a choice. Either you take the bag or you're not going to live in the house. And the man says, I agree.
Yes.
Right? It's considered a valid sale. Valid transaction. Valid. Somebody used to come here to one of the classes. He had a place out in Jersey Shore. Nice house on the water with a boat. One day a black limousine pulls up. A few people come out with sunglasses, with cigars, hair slicked back. They knock on his door. They said, we'd like to buy the house. Is it not for sale? So they took a bag of money, worth much more than the house was worth, whatever it was. They said, you have no choice. He said, okay, I agree to sell it. And that was the end of the story.
Cheerio.
What? They would not undo that, because that's a monetary transaction. It's only within the context of marriage, because that's not the way you marry a woman. Okay?
That they use the expression pricing like short.
Who asa shloko again?
So it's because he did something not right, and the Chachamim are doing something mida connected mida.
Right. Whether he likes it or not, it's irrelevant. They treat him the way he treated her. Okay. Holding two dots on Lamed Gimel and Aleph. Ton Rabbanon. So we had an argument between Rebbe and Reb Shimon Gamliel. If a person cancels the agency, not in the presence of the agent, is it canceled out? Rebbe says it is canceled. Reb Shimon Gamliel says it isn't canceled. Okay? Omer asor kisu get lishti. Yochel vato zeh shelo b'fnei zeh divrei Rebbe. Now, if a person says 10 people, I want you to write a get for my wife, that means any one of you 10, two of you 10, are qualified to be the Edom on the get. So let's say he cancels, and when he cancels 2 of them, we'll see, and he cancels 2 of the 10. Are the remaining 8, are they still qualified to be witnesses on a get? He really says, you 10 people, you're all qualified to sign on my get. So you need minimally 2 witnesses. And then he goes to 2 and says, you 2 people are canceled. I don't want you to sign on my get. So they're not qualified. The additional 8, are they still qualified or not qualified? Because when he canceled them, the others are unaware of the cancellation of the first 2. Would that be similar to the argument of Rebbe and according to Reb Shimon Gamliel?
But he only wants, how many does he want to sign? Just 2.
2, but all 10 are eligible to sign.
But he only needs
And he
2.
canceled 2 unbeknown to the rest. Okay? You could cancel some of them, not in the presence of the others, although it's not known to the others. So you'd say, why not? What's the reason why Rabbi Gamliel enacted it? Because if the agent is not aware he's canceled, he'll deliver the get, and he's no longer an agent. But over here, if the other 8 are still qualified to sign, there's no tragedy that could come about over here, correct? Because they're still, let's say they sign, they write the get, they're qualified to sign, so the woman is divorced, right? That's going to be that's the rationale. What? Because anything has to do with it, like the sofer, the edim, it has to be authorized by the husband. No, we had earlier, even the sofer. Sofer is also not a shliach. It has to be in conformance with his will. No, but it's not shlichus. It's not shlichus. Everything that has to do with the get has to be in conformance that he is willing and agreeable that it should be.
But isn't that witness supposed to be an independent observer? In other words, if the husband writes a get or has a get, then 2 witnesses say yes, we saw it.
No. It's not. It's different. See, if it's to verify fact, it's irrelevant what a person wants or doesn't want. A person steals. A person purchases something. The purchase is a purchase whether it's witnessed or not. Now the seller contests, he says, I never sold it. The 2 witnesses witnessed the transaction. It's irrelevant whether, I never appoint you people. There we just want to verify fact. Marriage and divorce, that's lekumate. That creates the marriage. It's not something to verify marriage, but they are integral to create it.
Is that a doraisa?
That's doraisa.
So if a man says to a woman, or whatever, he actually gives her a tabat and no witnesses, they're not married?
No, they're not. Nothing. They're not married whatsoever. Even if you have it on video later, on film that he married her, it's meaningless.
The doraisa level.
Not doraisa, not drabonon, nothing. Has no value whatsoever. Okay?
If the problem also be that you can't undo words with words,
No. We'll see.
no, why wouldn't that be a problem?
Let's see. We'll see. Well, everybody agrees words can undo words. Also, even vatal dibur. Right? Nobody argues that. And you point somebody, said you're no longer authorized. You're authorized, you're no longer authorized.
So it's different to the case where he gave the get.
He didn't give a get. Right? Correct.
They
Right.
Words are mine.
Reb Shimon Gamliel Omer, Eini yochel levatel, elo zeh b'fnei zeh. Reb Shimon Gamliel says he can only cancel the 2 of the 10 if the other people are aware of it. If they're not aware of it, you can't cancel them. So what's the argument here? And why? In the other case, we understand, right? Because if you cancel the agent unbeknown to the agent, if the get is given, the married woman is going to remarry. So therefore, we say the marriage is annulled, whatever we said. But over here, the 2 that are canceled know they're canceled, and the additional 8 that remain, they're still qualified. They're authorized. So why should Reb Shimon Gamliel say you can't cancel the first 2, the 2 of the 10? But my commitment. So what are they arguing? They're arguing, even though this is not the conventional Eidus Shabbat Mitzvah Shabbat L'Kula. Right? You have 10 witnesses testifying, and you find out one of the group is not qualified to testify, the whole group is canceled out. Right? Because that has to do with testimony. Here's not a question of testimony. Here I didn't say all 10 have to sign. The Gemara is going to say, if I said Kulchem, I want all 10 of you to sign. So if only 8 are signing, so the original condition is not being met. He said his get, he only wants his get to be a get if there are 10 signatures on it. If there are no 10 signatures, not a get. He says 10 of you are qualified. So canceling 2 of them shouldn't have any bearing on the additional 8. So to say, Rebbe that even though when he cancels 2, it has no bearing on the other 8, so the other 8 are still qualified. Reb Shimon Gamliel Sovar lo badla v'yazli hanach kasu yavi lichtu v'lichtu v'leisu. If the additional 8 go and they write again and they sign it, let them give it. They're still qualified witnesses, right? Because he's authorized them. We'll continue tomorrow.